Someone recently asked me on Instagram about the important conversation that took place actually around a year ago now. So last year in July 2023, you probably remember that there was this pretty large conversation about problematic behavior in the Godzilla fandom, ranging from like misogyny to creepy behavior toward, younger Godzilla fans, and of course, like racism, homophobia, transphobia, etc. And I mean, it really turned into a pretty huge conversation throughout the entirety of last July. And a question that I received really got me thinking. So a person asked me a couple of questions. They asked me, one, Donnie, do you think the Godzilla fandom has gotten better? And two, do you regret anything from last year? And this person asked the question in the context of the fact that I was receiving a lot of hate from some fans who were very uncomfortable with us even talking about social issues. So I will answer the second question first and flat out say I have zero regrets because, I mean, as someone with a platform, I think it's always important to have conversations. Am I always perfect at having conversations? No. Like, I am a human being, but all I can do is my best, right? But I think that there was, like, this impression that if there were a vocal few who were angry about us talking about any social issues, expressing their stances, that I would kind of, like, tuck away and not really wanna, like, have those conversations anymore, and that's absolutely not the case. If you watch my videos, I've been pretty consistent with having conversations, but I do think that it is important to continue the conversations, and I don't have any regrets over any of it. And in fact, I am very proud of the sheer number of people who participated in that ongoing conversation, because I know it's not easy to always have the conversations. I know not everyone always knows what to say. And in instances like that, if you don't know what to say, simply sharing a message or, clicking like on something or, in some way, like perpetuating a message that is meant to bring people together, that is important. And I think that was where a lot of the criticism came from. People thought that us talking about social issues was us dividing the fandom in some way. But I would push back and argue, how can a fandom or any community get better if we don't point out and have meaningful conversation about the toxic behaviors in said fandom or in said community? Because while those toxic behaviors may not impact us directly if we have varying degrees of privilege, they might be impacting someone else, right? And that individual may not talk about it or share about it. I think that what happened last year throughout July was important because a lot of people got on, whether it was social media posts or YouTube, and they started sharing their stories and their experiences about dealing with toxic behavior, whether it was dealing with creepy behavior from people at a convention or, dealing with sexism or homophobia or transphobia or racism, ageism, like so many different isms that, people have dealt with over the years. And of course, the common argument is like, well, every fandom has that. Yes. But our fandom doesn't need to universally ignore it. I think the Godzilla fandom is unique in the sense that we're big, we're pretty huge, and we've grown a lot over the last few years, but I feel like the Godzilla fandom is one of the most self-aware fandoms there is. Because our fandom is like the content itself is very much rooted in various social issues, whether people are willing to admit it or not. And I think that that makes us uniquely able to look within our community and be like, hey, what's working, what isn't, what is happening to, marginalized groups or other groups where there might be certain individuals doing very problematic things, right? And the truth is, some of those things are still happening, and they're not always talked about. And I think it's important that we do talk about them. And I plan on doing my best to continue talking about such things. So, but yes, the answer to that question would be I have no regrets. And I'm really grateful that we had that conversation. And in fact, a year later, I still have people saying, like, hey, like, the conversation that we all had last year, that was great. And I'm glad that there is still some momentum. So to answer the first question though, of do I think the Godzilla fandom has gotten better? I think in some ways it's gotten better. And I think the most important way is I feel like we're all at least a little bit more open-minded about having an open dialogue about issues, right? And I think before that, like there was this struggle with having an open dialogue because a lot of people were afraid of like upsetting the grouping of people who often say like keep politics out of Godzilla, right? But we're in a community. Like we are all human beings. We all have a history. We all have a varied past. Like and what happens in the community can impact us in a variety of different ways. So we would be negligent if we did not examine the social issues impacting, everyone in the fandom. The Godzilla fandom is absolutely not a monolith of experience. There are so many diverse experiences. And I think that having the conversation that we did opened up a few perspectives a little bit with regard to the fact that there are some people who deal with unbelievably creepy behavior from others. There are some people who deal with racism, homophobia, transphobia. And I saw many people being like, I didn't know that was happening. I didn't realize it. And it's okay to not have known because maybe you're not in those spaces where those things are happening, right? But it's what we do with that lack of knowledge or even that knowledge that really matters. Like if we don't know, do we shut it down? Do we shut down the conversation? Or do we take the next step and say, okay, like clearly there is an issue here. What can I do? Or what can we do in some way to do something about it to make it better, right? Is there a perfect solution? I mean, I feel like that is always up for conversation. My solution is just to simply have a conversation and talk about it, to storytell, to be an ally to the best of my ability, to advocate. Am I always perfect at it? No. I'm a human being. Like, am I always articulate about everything? No. I can only do what I can, right? And sometimes I have to course correct. Sometimes I have to like look back at something and be like, hey, maybe I didn't explain something well, but maybe now I'm equipped to do so. And I think the last important takeaway for how the fandom has gotten a little bit better is I feel like there is a lot more allyship and advocacy happening. At least I see it in my circles. Now, mind you, full disclosure, maybe I'm privileged in my circle, that or the circles that I'm in are like pretty inclusive and like we kind of look out for each other. There are probably circles out there I'm not aware of where people don't have that luxury, right? That I think is the important takeaway is like us trying to remember that the Godzilla fandom experience is not a monolith. Like people come from different backgrounds, have different interests, have different perspectives, and they may be in circles or they may that aren't always healthy, or they may be in situations where they can't share their story, right? Case in point, like, and I talked about this in the stream that I did, or in the video that I did with Kaiji Canuck, Rick Squirrel, and D-Man. Like, so there is this pressure if somebody goes through something to provide receipts, and I am at a place where, with my platform and my mental health where it is, I'm able to provide receipts because I think it's important to have them. Do I think everyone is able to have receipts? No. And I think that the pressure, like if somebody goes through something traumatic in the fandom, like creepy behavior, for example, and like asking them or pressuring them to provide receipts, I don't think that's acceptable. I really don't. If they choose to do so, that's great. But like, if somebody says something happens, I generally tend to believe them because that's a pretty important like stand. I think that's an important take is to like believe people if they say that something traumatic has happened to them. Have people use that to their advantage in the past? Yes, absolutely. And if someone comes forward and says something and then it's revealed that it's a fiction, like obviously like there's room for more conversation, but I think it's important to believe people, and I really think that pressing people for receipts is not always a healthy practice because it really it allows like the bystander to take like that, you know um that side seat and just to like not really engage in anything. And I really think the important thing we've seen this last year is that people are a little bit more active in shifting themselves from being a bystander to being an ally or an advocate within our community. So, but anyway, those are just my thoughts. This is just some chaotic murmuring. So I hope that all of this made sense, but I really wanted to take a moment and celebrate this past year and to remind everyone that our fandom is wonderful. We all have stories to tell, and I think that we've we've made some progress, and I am proud of all of us for being on that journey together. So anyway, share your thoughts in the comments below, subscribe to my channel, click like, stay tuned for the next episode of Growing Up with Godzilla, which will be out soon. Go back and catch up on episodes if you've missed them, and as always, thank you for listening, and I will see you all at G-Fest. Bye.